Montana Territory, July 1879. The sun was barely up over the Bitterroot Mountains when Jasper Sutton spotted the broken wagon wheel near the tree line, half hidden in tall grass. His horse, Flint, snorted and stamped nervously, ears twitching toward the stillness ahead. Jasper pulled the reins and swung down, rifle ready. He was used to quiet, being a man who worked alone most days, running cattle between Missoula and Deer Lodge. But this quiet was heavy, like a held breath. He stepped closer and saw the wagon was old, its canvas torn, the back gate hanging off. He heard something, then a small, sharp breath like someone trying not to be heard. He followed the sound around the far side of the wagon. That was the first time he saw her. She was crouched low in the grass, arms wrapped tight around herself, her dress dirty and torn at the hem. Her brown eyes locked onto his, wild and untrusting. "Hey," Jasper said gently, lowering his rifle. "You all right, miss?" She stood slowly, not answering. Her hands were shaking. "I ain't gonna hurt you," he added, keeping his voice low. "Name's Jasper Sutton. I was just passing through." The woman looked past him, then back. Her lips trembled before she spoke. "My name's Helena Vaughn," she said, voice hoarse. "Please, do not take me back to them." Jasper frowned. "Who's them?" Helena's chin lifted, but her voice cracked. "My family. My father and brothers. They think I belong to someone. Like property." Jasper's jaw tightened. She stepped back, but her knees gave out. He caught her before she hit the ground, steadying her with both hands. She flinched at first, then went still. She was too light. There were bruises on her wrists. "You got hurt?" he asked. "Not bad." She looked away. "Just hungry. Been walking since yesterday." "Come on," Jasper said, already guiding her toward Flint. "I got a fire up the ridge. Food, water. You can rest there. No one'll find you." Helena gave a small nod, but her eyes stayed wary. Still, she let him lift her up onto the horse, and when he climbed up behind her, she leaned into him, just a little. They rode in silence, the morning air thick with the scent of pine and dust. Jasper's camp wasn't far, a quiet clearing with a lean-to, a fire pit, and his pack mule tied to a stump. He helped her down, set her near the fire, and handed her a tin cup of water. She drank it in 2 swallows. He gave her bread and dried meat, and she ate like she had not seen food in days. "Thank you," she said between bites, her voice clearer now. Jasper sat across from her, watching the way her hands trembled, even after the food. "You want to tell me what happened?" he asked. Helena looked into the fire. "My father promised me to a man in Butte. Older than him. Said it was his right. I said no. My brothers locked me in the root cellar. Said I would change my mind. I waited until they were gone, then ran. How long have you been on your own?" "Since yesterday morning. I stole the wagon from our neighbor. Wheel broke not long after." Jasper exhaled slowly. "You got a plan?" "No." Her voice dropped. "I just knew I had to get away." He nodded. "You did right." She looked at him then, really looked. "You believe me?" "Yes. I do." They sat quiet after that, the fire crackling between them. Jasper poured coffee and handed her a tin cup. She took it with both hands, her fingers brushing his. "Where will you go?" he asked. "I do not know. Somewhere they will not look. Somewhere I can be free." He watched her, the way her shoulders were still held tight, like she was ready to bolt. But there was steel under all that fear. She had run, after all. She had said no. "You can stay here tonight," Jasper said. "Rest up. Tomorrow. We will figure something out." Helena nodded once. Her eyes softened. "Thank you." He gave her a blanket, and she curled under it near the fire. Jasper stayed up, sitting on a rock with his rifle across his knees, watching the dark woods. Sometime in the night, Helena stirred and sat up. "You said your name is Jasper?" she whispered. Yes. You are a kind man. He glanced over. Just doing what is right. She was quiet a moment then. No one ever did that for me before. He looked at her, really looked. Her hair was a mess of brown waves, and her face was pale from exhaustion, but her eyes were wide and steady now. If you want to keep going, I will ride with you, he said. Make sure you are safe. Her breath hitched. Why? Because no one should have to run alone. She stared at him a long time, then lay back down, curling into the blanket. Good night, Jasper, she said softly. Good night, Helena. The next morning, he found her already awake, crouched near the stream with her boots off, washing her face. She looked up at him, sunlight catching the water droplets on her skin. Would it be all right, she said, standing slowly, if I stayed a while longer? Jasper nodded. As long as you need. Helena smiled, faint but real. Then I will stay. They packed up camp together. Jasper gave her a spare pair of leather gloves, and she helped load the meal without needing to be asked. She moved like someone who had never been given a choice but had learned to survive anyway. As they rode along the northern trail, Helena turned to him. My middle name is Hope, she said. My mother gave it to me before she died. Jasper looked at her, the wind catching her hair. That suits you, he said. She smiled again, and this time, it reached her eyes. They rode side by side, toward the flatlands beyond the mountains, where no one knew her name. Where she could choose for herself. And where, slowly, she started to reach for freedom one steady step at a time. They followed the ridge eastward, where the trees thinned and the skies stretched wider than seemed possible. Helena rode Flint while Jasper led the mule, their pace unhurried, quiet except for the rustle of wind through grass and the muffle of hooves on dirt. By early afternoon, the trail dipped into a long valley where a narrow creek ran cool and shallow. Jasper whistled low and turned the horse toward it. We'll water here, he said, tying the mule to a cottonwood limb. Helena dismounted without help, her movements steadier than the day before. She knelt at the creek's edge, cupped her hands, and drank. Jasper watched from a few paces back, arms folded. She had washed the worst of the road from her face that morning, but her eyes held something clearer now, less guarded, more awake. You've traveled this way before? She asked without looking up. Every spring. Cattle drives come through the valley once the snow clears. Do you ever stop in one place? Jasper walked to the water and crouched beside her. I take winter jobs. Work a line camp, fix fences, trap. But come thaw, I'm back on the trail. She dipped her fingers into the current, watching the water swirl around them. That sounds like freedom. It can be. But it gets cold. Lonesome too. Helena glanced at him, her expression unreadable. I'd take cold over being owned. Jasper didn't answer. The wind moved through the cottonwood leaves, steady and soft. Helena stood and dried her hands on her skirt. What's east of here? She asked. Dry Towns? An old trading post near Judith Gap. Then the plains stretch out near Endless till Dakota. She nodded, thoughtful. I don't need a town. Just somewhere my name doesn't mean anything. He untied the mule and handed her the lead rope. Then we head that way. They pressed on, the land flattening into soft hills. That evening, they stopped beside a stand of juniper where the ground rose just enough to see for miles. Jasper made a small fire from dry branches. Helena gathered stones and circled the flames without being asked. When they sat down, she pulled her knees to her chest and stared into the heat. Do you think people can change? She asked. Jasper sliced a strip of jerky and passed it to her. Some don't want to. But those who do, they can. My mother used to say I was too stubborn for my own good. Helena bit into the meat thoughtfully. But I think she knew I'd need to be. She sounds wise. She was. Quiet, but sharp. She died when I was 12. After that, the house got quieter, but heavier too. Jasper stirred the coals with a stick. You ever think about going back? No. Her voice was firm. Not ever. He nodded and leaned back against his saddle. Then you'll need something of your own. A trade, maybe? I can sew, she said. And read. My mother taught me before my father decided I didn't need books. You could teach children, he said. Some of the ranches out east hire women for that. I don't want to belong to anyone's house again. She looked at him seriously. I'd rather sleep under trees. You don't have to belong to anyone, he said. You can choose who you stay with. That's different. Helena turned her face toward the fire. I wouldn't know how to do that. You've already started, he said. She was silent a long while. Then her voice came quieter than before. You're not like any man I've met. Jasper didn't look at her. Don't think I'm something I ain't. I don't, she said. That's the thing. You don't pretend. The moon was rising, pale and wide above the ridgeline. Helena lay down near the fire, her back to the wind. Jasper stayed awake a while, watching the horizon. Coyotes called faintly in the distance, but Flint didn't stir, and the mule kept chewing. When he finally lay down, it was close enough to hear her breathing. Steady now. Not afraid. In the morning, she woke first and heated water over the coals for coffee. Jasper sat up and stretched, rubbing the back of his neck. You always rise early? He asked. My father used to beat the sun up. He said sleeping late was a sin. She poured a mug and handed it to him. That why you're always moving forward? He asked, taking the tin cup. She sat beside him, legs crossed, hands folded in her lap. I move because I can now. For the first time, I get to decide where I go. Jasper sipped the coffee. And where do you want to go today? Helena looked out toward the east, where the light was just beginning to touch the hills. Her fingers curled around her knees, but her shoulders were relaxed. Wherever you're going, she said. Jasper didn't speak. He just stood, packed the bedrolls, and saddled Flint. When Helena mounted, she reached for the reins, but Jasper kept his hand over hers just a moment longer than needed. She didn't pull away. They rode on. The trail opened wider, and the air smelled of sage. Behind them, the fire cooled to ash. Ahead, the land waited, open and unknown. But neither of them looked back. By the fourth morning, they reached a low rise where the grass grew thick and sweet-smelling, and cottonwoods stood in quiet congregation along a bend in the creek. Jasper led them off the trail and into a hollow that opened beneath the trees. It was a place he knew, a cattleman's wintering spot, long abandoned, with a half-standing corral and a single stone hearth still upright. Helena slid from Flint's back without help and walked the perimeter, her fingers brushing over the broken fence rails, the iron hinges left rusting in the earth. This was someone's place once, she said. Couple by the name of McCrae tried settling here. Bad spring flooded 'em out 2 years running. They quitted after that. Did they have children? None I ever saw. Helena crouched beside a patch of wild rose blooming near the hearth, tugging gently at the stems as though testing if the roots still held. It feels like it might stay standing a while longer. Jasper unsaddled Flint and set to work gathering dry branches. He didn't speak again until the fire was built and catching well. You could make something here, he said, not looking at her. If you wanted. She straightened and brushed her hands on her skirt. You think I should stop riding? I think you ought to do what calls to you. But this place. It's out of the way. Soil's good. Creek runs clean. Helena turned toward the trees, eyes narrowed like she was measuring the light. I'd need to learn more. I don't know how to keep a roof from falling in. I do, he said simply. She walked back to the fire and sat, her knees drawn up beneath her skirt. If I built something here, would it be mine? Jasper nodded once. No one else lays claim. She stared into the flames. Then I'd like to try. They spent the day pulling brush from the collapsed lean-to and hauling stones from the creek to shore up the hearth. Helena worked without complaint, her hands blistering despite the gloves, her hair damp from sweat. Jasper saw how she studied everything he did, how he angled logs, how he tested the tension of twine, how he stacked kindling to draw smoke up and out. That night, they sat beside the fire, not speaking for a long while. The stars were clear above them, sharp as pins in dark wool. Jasper passed her a tin of boiled beans, and she ate slowly, her eyes distant. "I dreamed last night," she said after a while. "I was somewhere near water. Not this creek, something bigger. Wide and still. I stood on the bank, and no one was behind me. Not even you. Were you afraid?" "No. I wasn't anything. Just still." Jasper rubbed at the scar along his forearm, a pale mark from a bronch that had thrown him hard in his youth. "Dreams can lie," he said. "Or tell the truth too early." She looked up at him. "What do you dream about?" "Nothing I remember." Then, after a pause, "I used to dream of my brother. He died in the war. Sometimes I'd see him in the saddle, riding ahead. Never waited for me." Helena set the tin down. "I had a sister once. Only lived a few weeks. My mother buried her in the woods behind the house. I wasn't allowed to go near the spot." "Did she name her?" Helena nodded. "Iris. After the flower. My mother said it bloomed even in poor soil." They fell quiet again. The fire popped softly, throwing shadows across the half-cleared ground. Jasper leaned back on his elbows, watching the sky. "You want to plant something here?" he asked. Helena tilted her head. "Like what?" "Whatever grows. Could be a start." She smiled faintly. "I think I'd plant iris. If I can find one. If not, we'll ride to the nearest town come spring. Get seed." "You'd ride all that way for a flower?" He didn't look at her. "I'd ride further if you asked." She turned away, but he saw her swallow hard. "I don't know how to answer that." "You don't have to. Not yet." He stood and walked to the edge of the clearing, scanning the distant ridgeline. The wind had shifted, cool now, carrying the scent of pine and river rock. Helena joined him, standing close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. "I think I was meant to be alone," she said. Jasper didn't move. "You're not." She looked at him then, not guarded, not cautious, just searching. "But what if I don't know how to be with someone?" "You learn," he said. "Same way you're learning to build a wall. One piece at a time." Helena reached out and took his hand. Her grip was unsure, but she didn't let go. "Then help me learn," she said. "Here. With you." Jasper turned toward her. "We'll build it together." Hand in hand, they walked back to the fire. Neither looked behind. The land around them was quiet and waiting, and she no longer needed to run. By late August, the hollow had begun to resemble something more than a shelter. Jasper had shaped a new roofline from pine beams sawn by hand, and Helena had patched the stone hearth with a mix of clay and sand until the heat no longer leaked out at night. The air had taken on that brittle edge that meant the first frost wasn't far off, and the grasshoppers chirped louder than they had in weeks. Helena stood near the corral's edge, sleeves rolled past her elbows, hammer hanging from her fingers. She'd been working on the fence posts since dawn, learning to split and set them with Jasper's quiet guidance. Her palms were raw beneath the gloves, but her swing had steadied. "Once this line holds," Jasper said, adjusting the beam on his shoulder, "we'll start running wire. Keep out stray cattle come winter." She nodded without looking at him. "I've never seen a season change from one place before." He dropped the beam near the second post and knelt to measure the spacing. "Then you'll see this one proper. First frost paints every leaf silver for a day or two. Looks like the whole world's holding its breath." She leaned on the fence rail beside him. "Will you stay for it?" Jasper met her eyes. "Would you want me to?" "I wouldn't ask if I didn't." He stood slowly. "Then I'll stay." That night, they cooked flatbread on a slate stone warmed by the fire. Helena had found wild onion near the creek and stirred it into a pot of boiled beans. She poured the stew into tin bowls and passed him one without a word. They ate in the hush of dusk, the firelight painting the underside of her jaw in warm gold. I used to think quiet meant danger, she said, spoon pausing midair. Now it feels like a place I can live. Jasper sipped from his cup. Quiet's honest. Tells you everything if you listen. Helena set her bowl down. I found something in the ashes today. A bit of pottery. Just a shard, but it had a blue edge. He tilted his head. McRae's must have left it behind. I held it for a while. Thought about the woman who might have cooked with it. What she told herself when they packed up and left. You think she had a choice? I don't know. But I think it matters that someone stayed this time. Jasper set his cup aside. I've never had land of my own. Always figured it'd tie me down. Still feel that way? No. Helena didn't ask why. She didn't have to. The wind picked up as the fire died low. Jasper stood and tossed a blanket across the shelter's entrance where the bark door hadn't yet been finished. Helena watched him from where she sat cross-legged on the ground. Do you ever wonder what you'll be like in 10 years? She asked. He looked over his shoulder. Older. Slower. Maybe a little settled. She smiled faintly. I hope I'll still be building things. Not just with my hands. You already are. She rose and joined him at the edge of the shelter, where the wind brushed past the canvas flap like a whisper. There's something I haven't asked you. Go on. If you could have chosen a different life before the war, before the trail rides, what would it have looked like? He was quiet long enough that she almost took the question back. I'd have found a woman who knew her own mind, he said at last. Built a home she wanted, not one I thought she needed. Helena folded her arms across her chest. I don't need much. I didn't say need. I said want. She stepped closer, a half-breath between them. And what if I want this: a roof that doesn't leak, a man who listens, and a place where I can sleep without counting footsteps in the dark? Then that's what we'll have. She reached out and took his hand, her fingers threading through his. His grip was firm, not possessive like something offered, not claimed. The moon hung low and full as they stood in the doorway, the land before them open and hushed. Helena leaned her head against his shoulder, and they listened to the night settle around them, not running anymore, not hiding, just standing still together. And for the first time, the quiet didn't mean danger. It meant home. By early October, the wind came down from the north with a sharper bite, and the trees along the creek had shed most of their leaves. Jasper had finished the door to the shelter, a solid piece of pine hung on rawhide hinges, and Helena had begun sewing a curtain from feed sacks and wool scraps, her stitches growing neater by the day. They'd salvaged a cast iron pan from the riverbank, half buried in silt, and now used it for nearly every meal. One morning, Jasper returned from checking his traps with a bundle of rabbits slung over his shoulder and a letter folded in his coat pocket, the paper damp from where it had been handed off at the post out near Lewistown. He set the rabbits on the butchering stump and handed the letter to Helena without a word. Her brows knit as she unfolded it, scanning the words slowly. It's from my cousin Ruth. She says my father's gone to Kansas to buy horses. My brothers are running the land alone. Jasper crouched to sort the rabbits. She say anything else? She says they think I drowned crossing the river. That they stopped looking. He looked up, meeting her eyes. You all right? Helena folded the letter and slid it into her apron. I thought I'd feel angry. Or afraid. But I don't. I just feel done with them. That's the right feeling, I think. She set her hands on her hips, staring toward the trees. Ruth says she'll send books, if I write her back. You should. I will. I think I'd like to read again. That afternoon, Jasper built a shelf beside the hearth, just deep enough for a few volumes. Helena sat beside him, rubbing linseed oil into the wood. The scent filled the cabin, warm and sharp. You ever think about what might come next? She asked. I do, he said, setting the final nail. I've been thinking about building a barn. Something small. Enough to shelter the mule and keep supplies dry. I could help. You already do. She touched the edge of the shelf, then looked at him, her gaze steady. Jasper. I want to stay. Not just this winter. I mean for good. He didn't speak right away. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small cloth bundle wrapped in buckskin. He handed it to her. Inside was a plain silver ring, worn smooth at the edges. It belonged to my mother, he said. She gave it to me before I left Tennessee. Told me to carry it until I found someone whose hands didn't shake when they held mine. Helena didn't move for a moment. Then she set the ring in her palm and held it out to him. I've never worn a ring before, she said. Not for anyone. Jasper took it gently, slid it onto her finger. You don't owe it to me. Only wear it if you want this life. I do, she said. I want it with you. That night, the wind howled through the valley, but inside the cabin, the fire burned steady, and Helena's head rested against Jasper's shoulder as they sat wrapped in quilts. He read aloud from a book Ruth had sent weeks earlier, his voice slow and even. Helena's hand lay over his heart, her ring catching the firelight with each breath. Snow fell the next morning, a thin, early dusting that melted by noon. They walked the edge of the creek together, boots crunching through frost-tipped grass. Helena carried a small pouch of iris bulbs she'd traded for with a passing hunter's wife. She knelt at the bend in the bank and planted them carefully, pressing soil over each root with bare fingers. I want them to bloom by the door, she said. So every spring, I'll remember what we started. They'll take, Jasper said. Things grow here now. Years passed. The cabin became a home, 2 rooms, a loft, and a porch deep enough to watch storms roll in across the hills. Helena taught reading to children from nearby ranches, their boots muddy and their eyes wide, and Jasper raised horses on the flat stretch beyond the cottonwoods, his hands steady and sun-darkened. Every spring, the irises bloomed. And every night, Jasper and Helena sat together at the hearth, no longer running, no longer waiting, just a man and a woman who had built something lasting from the broken pieces they once carried alone. They never left the hollow. They never needed to.